Now, up next, we have our founders panel. I'm so excited for this one. We got tons of speakers actually on this particular panel, so I'm just super excited about it. Welcome. How are we feeling this afternoon?
How are we all?
Bonjour. I'm going to go in a bit of an order and just do an introduction of everyone, and I would love for you to each tell me a bit about yourself in a moment. So first up, we do have Eugene from Combitel. We also have Scotty Shindler from 1357, and we also have Alzane Stridom from Connected Culture, Sami Khan from Sami Khan Digital, and Alex Perot from Linkfluencer. Sorry about that. Scotty Shindler, tell us a little bit more about what it is that you do and how you got into your system 1357, what it is that you guys do.
Yeah, well, look, I've actually gone through the startup journey already, and I've actually gone through the whole entrepreneurial journey, successfully exited and retired early. And so I'm a big fan of the startup community. I started that in 2000, before startups really called startups, before SaaS was a product, and I was doing SaaS before cloud was around. It was just internet-based.
Wow.
So it's a interesting journey back there to try to convince people to put your stuff on the internet and store it all there. And people are going, who's Google anyway? I mean, who'd ever go to Google? So it's really interesting, that sort of startup journey. But I've gone through that journey. I've come out the other end. And as a bit of a playground now, I teach people how to grow their businesses, how to sell, how to present, how to build teams, and so on. So that's what I do now as a hobby.
Hi, yes, I own a performance marketing agency, which means we help a lot of startups actually become businesses. I've heard so many models and ideas in my life, and being a startup myself, it used to be extremely hard to enter into the traditional agency space, but because of all the tech available, and it's a marketing tech space more than anything else, it's quite easy. Yeah, we build business in the air.
Well, my journey was more digital media development initially. So I launched a business back in late 12 and 13, and I had a quick exit. Grew the team from 0 to 17. Had an exit from the development side, but then I noticed that there were so many startups that I was working with who were able to build the product but were not able to market it properly and were not able to find the customers. So then my focus shifted more towards digital marketing, and now my sweet spot of operation is when businesses are entering from the early 7-figure mark to mid 8-figure mark. That's the area where I advise them to scale through the power of digital marketing.
That's how my journey started, and then I failed in my first 4 businesses, lost a lot of money, took on advice from a mentor, which I think is extremely important, and then I exited my next 2 businesses, and then at that point I started an advisory firm because I thought I know what not to do and what to do. So I built that advisory firm through LinkedIn back in 2013 when no one really knew what LinkedIn was about. And then it's been a great journey, 8.5 years, built a pretty successful company.
Combitel has been around for over 15 years. Yet we remain small and focused on niche markets and niche projects, the ones that I like. So I guess a lot of startup leaders or startup participants, I should say, and employees have been talking throughout the show about doing what you like. And I must say I'm enjoying it.
Well, here's a saying that I have. If you're worth it and you can prove it, you'll get paid it. Now, it doesn't matter if it's corporate or a startup, or you start your own. It doesn't really matter. If you're worth it and you can prove it, you'll get paid it. That's the thing, right? If you want to start a business on your own and you're not prepared to do what it takes, well, stay with corporate. But if you're prepared to do what it takes, you can leverage off a startup or you can leverage off a corporate, but there's nothing better than leveraging off yourself. So by all means, whenever someone asks me, I say, do it, but that's the caveat. If you just want a job so you can work a couple of hours a day or whatever and go surfing, well, that's fine, but that's not really a startup. That's not really an opportunity. So once again, I think I've answered all of that in one thing that I've totally spoken about for years and years and years. And I'm only talking from experience because that was my reflection of myself. I thought I was worth more. So rather than complaining, in 2000, I left the job I had after 10 years, I said, I'm going to have a go on my own.
I actually love what you're saying there, because you do mention there too that it does take work and effort and grit, like all of you know. I know you know the hard yards of what it can be like. And one thing I'll say to anyone who wants to work in a startup is, as an employee of a startup too, sometimes, not always, depending on how the startup is, sometimes you've got to be ready for that as well. It does take a slightly different character than just a regular corporate job as an employee too. So keep that in mind when applying to startups. Like, you can't just go in there and not care too much, because remember, that's somebody's business. You're at the growth phase. You really want to be on board. Just like, rowing the boat. If you're not ready to like really paddle, I don't know, maybe think about that.
It's definitely culture and energy and the willingness is first versus the traditional sense of I've got a job. We hire for culture and we hire for energy. And we do it so much better than when we hire just for this is my CV and this is my resume and it's boring.
I want you to be aware that if you're not willing to go through 10 years of striving and working hard, then maybe, and by the way, corporate jobs are wonderful. There's a lot of great benefits. Yeah. It's just different things. You don't need to be an entrepreneur to have a successful life, because see, it leads to like a lot of depression and stuff like that. I just don't want people like thinking that's all that they have to do.
I think one term that we don't talk about often in the media, probably it's not as hot as the word entrepreneur, is the term intrapreneur. It's not necessarily your bankroll on the line for you to take responsibility. I think even if you're an employee, if you're an entrepreneur, if that's an organization of like, let's say 10,000 people or maybe 2, I think end of the day, the company or the business is trying to solve problems. And if you can contribute to them well, as to Scotty's point, it doesn't matter wherever you're doing that, you will get enough value for it. The other thing is, I think we also, as a starter, if I could go back like 12, 13 years when I was starting, I would remind myself to give first before expecting anything in return. And in terms of giving and adding value, and also the luxury that someone who's just starting a career or looking to start a career in a startup versus corporate is that there's a luxury that they can be generalists before they become specialists.
I think it ultimately comes down to your outcome. We go through high school, no one talks about unlocking what your purpose or passion is, right? So if you know what your purpose is in life, then you got to look for the vehicle, whether it be corporate, whether it be startup, that helps you get there. So for example, linkfluencer, we've got aggressive goals, looking at sell to LinkedIn within 3 to 5 years. If LinkedIn came up to me and said, would you work with the CEO as part of this exit for the next 2-3 years? And as a result of that, you make X more money and your vision is accomplished at an accelerated rate, no doubt, 100% I would. But that feeds into my overall vision. Being an entrepreneur is not for everyone. My recommendation to any entrepreneur or anyone who wants to start up a business is you go to the local theme park, you jump on a roller coaster, and you ask yourself, did you enjoy the lows and the highs? And if you don't, forget it. Yeah. It's not for you. Because there's been, like last night I couldn't sleep because we've got quite a few challenges going on with the tech. So like, you just got to be aware you're not going to have many sleepless nights.
Our first customer was a internet service provider in Queensland that collapsed very quickly to the point that their doors were sealed by court order or something like this. So, but we've put a lot of resources into that work. So that and as a result, we had to very quickly reposition and make sure we have other customers. And I think this echoes across the panel all the time about not putting your eggs in one basket. Intentionally, I didn't. So this was just a significant project, and it came without control.
I'm going to go back to 2006, and when I put in a financial system into the business. And the reason why I put in a financial system, even though I had processes and procedures, was because I had no money to pay wages that week. So I got to the start of the week and I had $1,700. I had no money to actually pay everyone if no more money came in. And I was a self-funded startup, and I was also not wanting to ever go into debt. So I wanted it to be self-funded, right? So I went back to the drawing board and had to completely reinvent a system that the staff could follow and they'd be rewarded for. So I introduced a bonus system. So in actual fact, everyone got a pay cut, but in actual fact, a pay rise that week. So I completely and that same system I kept with me the entire time. So every single person within Renet had an opportunity themselves to go the extra mile and get paid for the extra work they're doing. But the system involved how the clients paid, how the clients got billed. I built an entire system. So I was a programmer as well. I was a self-taught programmer. So once I got the staff to go, hey, this is good for me, I then spent the month just putting it in play, and we had a proper system that stayed in the business forever. The way it invoiced people, it was a little bit like Xero today, but I actually did it back in 2006.
You look at you. You're 10 years ahead of the game. What's going on?
I started Xero as well, right? But anyway, I stayed focused on what I was doing, and it was perfect for me. But the system did everything, as well as, most importantly, it managed the staff and their expectations and their rewards. So they got rewards from their effort. So that was a turning point for me. So, it wasn't so much that I had no money and I went, oh, what do I do? Do I go and find some money? Do I get some investors? No, I said, well, I'm going to have to change it and improve my systems, because it's the system that was broke, nothing else. So we had processes, but they weren't locked in. So I created systems then, and then everyone just worked the systems and completely, took the company to a whole new level within 12 months. It was amazing.
Failure is, I make people co-responsible at the startup from the start, and that really helps. And we are completely allowed to stuff up and forgive ourselves. And I think you only learn that once you've failed 2 or 3 businesses and you go sit on a rock and you stare. And to prevent that happening again, it's skin in the game for me, from a net revenue share with my staff to a performance upside with my clients. And that keeps everybody in the decision, and it keeps the truth going.
So I think the failure that I've observed from the consulting lines or from being inside a startup myself is the validation when that falters, when you launch a nice product and it doesn't resonate with the market. And that has happened a few times with myself on my own individual products or a product that a client was working on. But I think the answer to that is I'm happy that now with digital, there are so many ways for you to validate a concept. Before even having that product ready, you can sell it, you can validate the market. And Alex, who's next up, also has an e-learning or educational product. So I think it's very relatable for us who are offering something in the e-learning space to validate our ideas ahead of time. So I think that was a failure, like several times, but then the solution is to validate that early, inexpensively, and fail on your desk instead of failing in the market as much as possible.
I love it. So test first.
But I think over time, as you mature as an entrepreneur, you realize failure is actually just part of the process. I don't know anyone who is successful. I'm happy to be proven wrong. That has amounts like loads of success, whether that be money or success or company, whatever that success looks like, that hasn't gone through some failure, challenge, etc. So I've just come to learn that it's part of the process, and you just deal with it.
This was our founders panel. It's been amazing. You can feel it in your bones if you're an entrepreneur. I'm telling you, at least for me, you can feel it if it's the case, and you can feel it if you're not sure. I don't know, you could maybe try it, but you usually, I don't know, it's just something that's just there, and you don't really want anything else, and you don't exactly always need to know why. So obviously the failures we've covered, successes, I really encourage you to check out all of the businesses for our wonderful founders for today's panel. We had Combitel, we had System 1357, we had Connected Culture, we had Sami Digital Agency, and we also had Linkfluencer. And I encourage you to get onto their websites, check them out, and hit them up. Maybe they might be a mentor for you. So thank you everyone for attending and for sticking back a little later. I appreciate your time.
Thanks
for having us. Thank you, Jess.